So it's difficult to speak to you because I am struggling, as I think many of us are, with the events of the week in Parkland, Florida, in a school. And this has been going on for far too long. And I remember being here in Colorado for Columbine in 1999, trying my darndest to get pregnant, and gave birth to twins in 2000. So this is a long time. And it's been a struggle. It's been really a struggle to not feel like I'm up here giving empty words or platitudes, because, as you know, words are only the beginning, and it's action that we need to take. I've been having conversations with my children, with my now 17-year-old twin boys, and I've been surprised by some of the things that they've had to say, and they've really grown up with this being a reality around them, and that's been really difficult for me as a parent. So that's so sad to me, and I know that I, as a parent, feel overwhelmed by worry and fear and anger. And sometimes it's really difficult in that overwhelmingness to do something about it. Obviously, we need to, and it's really difficult. So I hope that my words, my music, our prayers, our singing, our words can really lead us into a better place, because it's time. And I know there are teachers in this room, 2 of you that I spoke to before we began services, and I apologize that you are on the front line of this moment. So this week's Torah portion is Truma. It was my stepdaughter's Torah portion in 2004 when she became bat mitzvah. Truma is the portion where we last week received laws, we've received commandments, we've received laws. We've been told to not oppress the stranger. I spoke of that last week in my sermon last week. And now here we are wandering the desert. Here are the Israelite people wandering the desert, and God asks them to build a mishkan, to build a sanctuary in the middle of the desert. And so they are told to bring their best gifts. Each individual, according to their ability, is asked to voluntarily bring their gifts, whether it's the ability to construct and be a builder, whether it's dolphin skins, which that's another sermon of how they might have dolphin skins in the desert. It's to bring whatever they have to construct this sanctuary in the desert. And so, to me, that is a perfect metaphor for us today. How are we in a desert? How are we in a parched, empty desert? And how are we to fill it with gifts and beauty? How are we to bring our best gifts to fill our desert with beauty, with sanctuary? Sanctuary. Sanctuary means safety, holiness. How do we create safety and holiness? How do we use our gifts to create that? In 1999, I didn't make that connection until I said it out loud to you just now. In the beginning of 1999, so before Columbine happened, I was here, I was younger then, we dedicated this sanctuary, this building, this room. And we did it at this Torah portion. A line in this week's Torah portion says, "V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." God said, "Make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst you." It will be chanted tomorrow morning. V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst you. And for that occasion of the dedication of this safe place, this beautiful, holy, safe space, my friend and I wrote a melody to those words and wrote a song to those words. And I wanted to sing you the chorus with those words. V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti, that we asked Har Hashem, this mountain of God, to create a sanctuary and to ask God to dwell amongst us. And that melody goes like this. Ve'asu li mikdash ve'shachanti betocha. Make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst you. Ve'asu li mikdash Har Hashem. I will dwell amongst you. And we sang those words, and I ask you today, in 2018, how can we create a holy space in this desert? How are we to build a sanctuary in our current environment? How are we to be in how are we to move from this state of in-betweenness? The Israelites in this Torah portion in Shema have received laws, have been redeemed from Egypt into freedom, and yet they're not in the promised land. They're wandering in the desert. They're in between. I feel like we're in between as well. How do we take that in-betweenness where we are free but not yet in the promised land, and how do we move it forward to create sanctuary? What is a sanctuary? Well, we know it's a place of safety. We know it's a place of holiness. And these words remind us that God dwells in a sanctuary. And so I ask you, does it need to be a physical place? I pray that God dwells here, but I also know that God dwells with you in moments of sanctuary outside of this room. I know that when we see other human beings for their value and we look them in the eye and we speak to people with kindness and love, that's a sanctuary, and God dwells amongst us then. I know that community builds sanctuary. I know that schools and synagogues and churches and gathering places build sanctuary when they are safe. What is a personal sanctuary? What's a sanctuary for our own hearts? How do we create safety for our own hearts when we are overwhelmed with fear and anxiety? How do we create a sanctuary for our own hearts? What is the value of prayer in all this? I believe that prayer should and can move us to action. Prayer can open us up. Prayer can help us feel vulnerable so that we can name our yearnings, so that we can cry out, so that we can say, I need support, I need community, I need God's presence. And we can name those things with our prayer so that we can then move into the world to create sanctuary. And what does it mean for God to dwell amongst us? How do we create safe and holy moments? How do we arrive at a world that follows an ability, these rules of how we treat each other? How do we do that? Rabbi Green sent words to all of you, sharing some of his pain in being in Israel while this is happening here. And he sent links for action. So there are ways to connect to the movement. There are many, many ways to make a difference. But the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism is specifically has been fighting gun violence and has ways that you can join in the fight against gun violence and ways that you can take action. So if you did not receive that email, or you need help finding those links, if you'd like help with that, please ask me. I wanted to read something from Rabbi David Wertschafter, who is the rabbi of my sister's congregation in Lexington, Kentucky. And so I officiated at my niece's bat mitzvah with him, and he was published on the national stage this week. The reformjudaism.org published his words in response to the violence, and I wanted to read this to you. God spoke to Moses saying, quote, "Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts from every person whose heart so moves him. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." He says, how painfully ironic it is that the perpetrator in this week's school shooting in Florida chose Valentine's Day to carry out his fatal plot. A day of love, romance, flowers, chocolate, amorous notes, and intimate poems turned into one of hate, fear, bloodshed, tragedy, and death. Cupid's arrows were destroyed by the high-powered bullets of an automatic rifle. Our greatest gifts were gruesomely gunned down. It is the word gift, truma, from the opening verse of our weekly Torah reading that this Torah portion, Parshat Truma, takes its name. The slaughter of more young people, the squandering of yet more gifts, constitutes a level of grief that we cannot accept. The spilling of innocent blood can never become acceptable. It cannot be tolerated, rationalized, trivialized, marginalized, or stoically endured. No one should have to endure it. So may every person whose heart so moves us consider the cost of our current state of affairs. May we be moved to ask if this is how God intended us to use the gift of life. May we be moved to go beyond thoughts and prayers. May we be moved to act on behalf of our children, our students, our neighbors, and our communities to demand a more responsible use of our most precious resource. Children are among God's greatest gift to us. Our ability to cherish, protect, nurture, love, and value them is among the greatest gifts we have to offer in return. To receive a gift is to accept the promise that comes with it. To give a gift is to express the expectation that it will be received with gratitude and utilized responsibly. For the sake of our children, past, present, and future, let us become better guardians of our gifts. May this be our blessing, and let us say, Amen. Ve'asu li mikdash, ve'shachanti b'tocha. Make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst you. Ve'asu li mikdash. Har Hashem, I will dwell amongst you. Keni Hiratzon.